I'm a casual enjoyer of High School Musical. It's something I'm super chill about. Ask anyone. If they tell you any different, they are lying.
What about us? What about everything we've been through? And what about trust?
For those somehow out of the loop, High School Musical, directed by Kenny Ortega and based on an unused screenplay for Grease 3, originated as a Disney Channel original movie in 2006, spawning a franchise that would dominate and change the landscape of the Disney Channel for the next decade or so. The films focus on a group of students at East High, primarily focusing on the relationship between leads Troy Bolton and Gabriela Montez. But as much as I love them, they are not the topic of conversation here. High School Musical is a trilogy about growing up, going from a child to someone who is ready to go to college and enter the adult world, about becoming comfortable with yourself and your identity. As such, the films have some interesting things to say when it comes to how we represent masculinity, especially when it comes to representations of a high school masculinity. In this video essay, we will focus on Chad Danforth, Troy's best friend, and one of the East High Wildcats'
What team? Wildcats!
star players, whose own conceptions of masculinity and how these change are directly tied to his arcs throughout the films.
I don't dance!
Let's go chronologically through Chad's arcs throughout the films and examine how these display ideas and approaches to masculinity. It seems a good way to proceed.
I don't dance, no!
In High School Musical, Chad learns that it's okay for his friend to sing. We are first introduced to Chad alongside East High, and it is here that we are also introduced to an image that is ever present throughout the film and the series as a whole, that being Chad with a basketball. I counted. There are around 52 scenes in the first film, give or take. Chad features in just under half of these, being present for 23 scenes. There is only one scene in the entirety of the first film where Chad does not make contact with a basketball at any point. Chad's identity is directly tied with his sport, and his idea of masculinity is similarly tied to basketball. His arc in the first film is learning that it's okay that Troy would want to pursue musical theatre in addition to basketball, and that doesn't make him any less of a man. This tying of sporting to masculinity is something many academics have noted, such as Graham Lindiger and Justin Maxwell.
Interestingly, sport has also always played a central role in the enactment of hegemonic masculinity during adolescence, with Connell, 1995, commenting that sport is fast becoming the leading definer of masculinity.
We can see this at play in the library scene, where Chad attempts to convince Troy that pursuing theatre isn't worthwhile.
Look, you're a hoops dude, not a musical singer person.
In Chad's wording of these ideas, we can see that he actively characterizes basketball as an inherently masculine idea, whilst musicals are more obscure and uncomfortable for him to talk about. As such, Chad sees basketball as opposed to musical theatre, something that was, especially contemporaneously, seen as an effeminate activity and especially tied to people within the LGBTQ community. We can see this idea in the run-up to Get Your Head in the Game, with this exchange.
The music in those shows isn't hip-hop, okay, or rock, or anything essential to culture. It's like show music. It's all costumes and makeup. Oh, dude, it's frightening.
Yeah, I know. I just thought it might be a good laugh, you know?
It's notable then that the one moment when Chad is not attached to a basketball in the entire film is when he allows himself to accept that him preventing Troy from doing the musical isn't making him any happier, and owning up to the fact that he is responsible for the rift between Troy and Gabriela, telling Troy that it's okay to pursue musicals if he wants to.
We just want you to know that we're gonna be there, okay, cheering for you.
Huh? Yeah, if singing is something you want to do, we should be boosting you up, not tearing you down.
Yeah, I mean, win or lose, we're teammates. Okay, that's what we're about.
And then, at the end of the film, Chad is the first to give Breaking Free a standing ovation. What character growth, and what a king.
I don't dance, no!
In High School Musical 2, Chad learns that he can dance too. And sure, you can say, but Chad dances in the last film, and right before he sings I Don't Dance, which he dances to, he does dance sequences like Work This Out. And you would only be half right, hypothetical person that thinks they're being smart. But, this is getting into the realm of musical diegesis, which is an unrelated conversation for a different time. Dance is already seen as highly effeminate in Western society to begin with, and attitudes towards it are often seeped in deep homophobia, as Doug Reisner outlines.
The 20th century construction of prejudice towards male dancers and the homophobia that today continues to surround gay or straight men in dance.
And that
Homophobia is a key defining element in contemporary, postmodern masculinity.
As such, whilst Chad might have accepted that Troy would want to pursue musical theatre, his own masculine identity, built out of a culture that views musical theatre as an entirely non-masculine domain, and a culture that is actively prejudiced and bigoted against that world, feels threatened by any idea that he himself could dance. Indeed, the I Don't Dance sequence is a big turning point for Chad's character, where he starts the song by vehemently opposing the idea that he would be anything like Ryan, the most effeminate male character in the whole series, who is also notable for being partly based on Kenny Ortega himself, who is a gay man, and who Disney vetoed the idea of being an explicitly queer character for High School Musical 3 because, of course they did. Eventually coming around to his side after Ryan reveals that he, like Chad, can play baseball too. As such, Chad allows himself to adopt aspects of Ryan, letting Ryan teach him some choreography. With Ryan being such a queer-coded character, and with Chad's acceptance of these less hegemonic masculine identities, we can see something that Connell and Messerschmidt describe in relation to the rise in visibility of queer identity and how that has affected masculine ideals.
This has made it possible for certain heterosexual men to appropriate bits and pieces of gay men's styles and practices and construct a new hybrid configuration of gender practice.
In High School Musical 3, senior year, Chad loses control. As the heads of the Wildcats, Chad and Troy enjoy power and control, being masculine ideals for the rest of the Wildcats to look up to. This results in the hazing of Jimmy and Donnie, as they are emasculated, being forced to run around the school in nothing but a towel, which, as Anderson, McCormack and Lee note, is a practice often used as a tool
Feminizing and homosexualizing recruits to establish and reaffirm their position at the bottom of the team's heteromasculine hierarchy.
Even though Troy and Chad may have grown as people and developed past a certain hegemonic masculinity, the culture within which they have been raised is still very much present within themselves. They are still at the top of this hierarchical structure and enjoy the power and control that comes from that. However, once Chad and Troy leave East High, they no longer have access to this power and control. And once it's revealed to Chad during the opening night of the senior year spring musical that Troy will not be joining him at the University of Albuquerque, Chad's confidence breaks down as he will no longer have the support of his oldest friend. As Day, Stump and Carrion, right?
Safety in numbers for these men involved not only being shielded from danger but also protecting one's image as powerful and invincible.
Chad feels safe, and as a result feels powerful when he's with Troy. And losing that shakes him to the point where he has to leave the stage and retreat to somewhere where he does feel safe, the basketball court. His masculinity is strongest on the court, where he has power and control throughout the trilogy, and as such is his safe space away from the fears of uncertainty and the future that the revelation that Troy won't be going to the same college as him provides, as
spaces that promote feelings of safety do so in part by bolstering masculinism.
In the ensuing exchange between Troy and Chad, Troy tells Chad that this won't be the end of them. They will still see each other on the court, in their safe space. It'll just be on opposing teams instead of playing together.
Does Berkeley play?
Oh, yeah. We're scheduled to kick some red hot butt next November.
Game on, oops.
Yeah. Oh, one more steal. The final point.
It's the end of the video, so let's wrap this up. Chad's characterization throughout the series is one of a fragile masculinity. A masculinity that is threatened by his friend's interest in theatre, he himself participating in dance, as well as the idea of change itself. But the High School Musical series allows the character to grow past this fragility, and subverts the idea of hegemonic masculinity by letting him take part in the productions of the sequels, as well as supporting his friend in his theatrical endeavours, growing past the opinion that such activities are emasculating and make Troy and himself lesser men. Rather, they are greater men for it. And we stan.
Chad.
Where's my team, Darvis? What the heck are those two doing in a tree?
It's called crime and punishment, Bolton. Beside, proximity to the arts is cleansing for the soul.